so let's make a little background information here. What is a sequence? Well, I've written the definition as an ordered arrangement. You don't need to know that definition. I'm never going to ask you that definition. But what did you guys do probably back in, gosh, probably elementary school, that looked something like this, where you had a bunch of numbers, like a pattern, like what's the next number in this sequence? Have you ever do that kind of stuff in middle school or elementary school even? Or maybe it had circle star, and like what came next, that kind of stuff, you know what I'm talking about? That's a little bit like what we're going to be doing, except for we're not going to try to figure out the pattern in our head. We're actually going to come up with a formula for it, okay? So it is all the same kind of idea of patterning. We're going to deal with, in this class, two specific types of sequences, arithmetic and geometric. And on your formula sheet, your SOL formula sheet, you'll see that you have both of these. Now, this is new. As I guess about 3 years ago, they put these formulas, 2 years ago, they put these on here. Before that, you had to memorize all these formulas, okay? So be thankful that they've updated the formula sheet. You have them, you don't have to memorize them anymore, so it's a good thing. So what does it mean specifically to be an arithmetic sequence versus a geometric sequence? And again, don't write on your formula sheet, but an arithmetic sequence is when I would add the same number every time. Arithmetic add. So if you look at this particular sequence I have up here, 6, 10, 14, 18, 22, would you say yes or no that it's arithmetic? Why would you say no? Yes? Why would you say yes? What number are you adding the same each time? 4. So we call that our common difference, and the common difference would be 4 every time. Can you think of a sequence? Let me try to come up with one here. See if this is arithmetic. Oops. Is that an arithmetic sequence? I heard yes and I heard no. If you're multiplying this time, right? You're multiplying by what number? 2. That's called a geometric sequence, okay? So geometric when you're multiplying by the exact same number, and arithmetic when you're adding the same number. So this would be considered a geometric sequence. And the one we did before over here would be an arithmetic because you had the common difference. Now for the next couple of days, we're going to be specifically talking about arithmetic. We'll get to geometric eventually, but we're going to talk about arithmetic for a couple of days. And there's 2 different ways that we can write the formulas, and they all do have formulas. Something called an explicit formula, and then the other kind of formula is called recursive. If you look at your formula sheet, the first 2 formulas underneath the word arithmetic, the first one is called the explicit, okay? And the one, and don't write it on the sheet, but you can write it on your notes if you want. The first formula is called the explicit formula. The first formula is called the explicit formula. So underneath your arithmetic, that's the explicit one. And then underneath that's called the recursive one. So if I was going to be adding something to my notes, I would say, okay, the explicit formula looks like this. And the recursive one actually has 2 parts, and it's not written. They gave you the second part. We'll come back to what the first part is in a minute. Okay? But they give you that. No, I don't want you to write anything on the sheet itself. You can, but if you do that, Daniel, then you just have null and voided you using it on anything from the future. And so I want you to be able to use it, right? So don't write anything on the formula sheet. Because that's the way it's going to come to you on the SOL, right? Just looking just like this. So I don't want you to write anything on it. I wrote it right up on the board, baby. The recursive one is the second one, and the explicit one is the first one on your formula sheet. Okay? So we have to kind of back up for a minute and talk about notation. Okay? What is this a sub 1, a sub n minus 1? What does that all mean? Okay? So up at the very, and then kind of the mid, right underneath the word sequences and series formulas on your formula sheet, they try to explain what all of those things mean. A sub n represents the nth term. So A sub 1 would be the first term. A sub 2 would be the second term. A sub 3 would be the fourth term, which is kind of what I wrote here. A sub 1, that's the first term in the sequence. A sub 2 is the second term in the sequence. If I asked you a question like, what is A sub 5, in this arithmetic sequence that I have on the board, what would you tell me? What is A sub 5? It's 22. It is the fifth term. You just count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's the fifth term there. In this geometric sequence that I gave you, what's A sub 3? 8. Okay, it's the third term in your sequence. If it asks you for something like A sub n, that usually means what's the formula. Okay, so you're going to find the formula, which means you're going to have an n in it. Okay? If it asks you for A sub 1 or A sub 3, it's asking you for that term. It's kind of a notation thing. What if it had A sub n minus 1? What does that n minus 1 mean? If it's a little subscript down there. Eduardo, I really need you to put your quiz up. You've had more than enough time. It means previous term. Okay, so I would just kind of write this down. It means the previous term. Okay, so anytime you see that A sub n minus 1, that just means previous term. Okay, I'll explain. Okay, so if I say, okay, that this term is A sub 1, A sub 2, A sub 3, A sub 4. What if I wanted to find the previous term to this one? It's 4 minus 1. So that would be A sub 3. All this n minus 1 means is take the term you have and subtract 1. That's all it means. It just means the previous one. Okay? So I tend to just think to myself, anytime I see this, rather than get confused or worried, I just say, oh, that just means previous term. And I just look at the one before it. Okay? So how can I take this idea of an explicit versus a recursive formula and actually come up with them? We're going to first start by talking about an explicit formula. Okay? And then we'll look at the recursive definition as well. So look at your formula sheet. If we're talking about arithmetic, okay, we want to figure out, well, actually, before we even get to arithmetic or geometric, I don't care in this particular got it problem number 1, I don't care if it's arithmetic or geometric, do I? I gave you a formula. It happens to be an arithmetic formula, but you don't know that. I want to figure out what A sub 12 is. How do I do that? If I want to find, now I don't have it written out like I did before. I don't have it written out. All I have it this time is I have a formula for it. How can I find the 12th term? Well, let's just find a pattern first, okay? Let's find A sub 1. How would I do that? Well, I'd plug a 1 in. What is 12 times 1 plus 3? 15. So if I'm going to write out the sequence, the first one's 15. What's A sub 2? Well, what does that mean I'm going to do? Plug in a 2 into my formula. And when I plug in a 2, what do I get? 12 times 2 plus 3. I get 27. So that means the second term is 27. Now let's find A sub 3. So if I want to find A sub 3, it's going to be 12 times 3 plus 3. 39. Good. And I'm going to continue on until I get to A sub 12. I can figure out the pattern. What number am I adding every time? 12, right? You see that? The common difference is 12 every time. Notice that's what number is there. That's not a coincidence. I could, but I don't need to because I'm just finding the 12th term. Or I'm sorry, the 12th term. Do I need to go ahead, if I want to find the 12th term, is it required that I find 1, 2, 3, 4, all the way up to 12? I can just plug a 12 in right from the beginning, okay? Well, we're going to plug 12 into the formula, okay? So to find a sub 12, all I really need to do is plug in a 12 into the formula. So 12 times 12 plus 3, 147. So 147 is the answer to my question, okay? Now, on your homework tonight, it's going to ask you, like, to find the first 4 terms of the sequence. If it said that, you're going to have to find the first one, the second one, the third one, the fourth one, okay? And all that means is plug in the numbers, okay? It might give you the formula and say, what are the first 4 terms? You think you could do that? It's simply plugging it in. That's all you're doing. There's really no catch right now. Right. Like I said, I start easy and we build up, right? So I get it. Today is going to be a very easy day in terms of what the new material is. And we will build on it, and it will get more difficult. But for today, it's fine. You probably will. All right, let's keep going. Okay? No, I don't need to worry about that. Okay. Don't need to do that either. Okay. So what I'd like to be able to do here is talk about an explicit formula for this. So this is an example I would write in your notes. And it says, I want you to write an explicit formula to describe this sequence. Okay? So write the sequence down. 2, 6, 10, 14, and 18. Why do you think I drew those little arches there and wrote +4? Because that just shows that I'm adding 4 each time to get to the next one, okay? So in other words, this information here, you'll probably have to decide on your own. It will not always be given to you. So you're just looking for the pattern. And right now, all you're looking for is, are we adding or subtracting the same number to get to the next one? Okay? We'll worry about dividing and multiplying later. Right now, you're only looking for adding or subtracting. And in this case, what is the common difference? 4. Okay? I'm adding 4 each time. It's called common difference. If you look at your formula sheet, what letter do we use in our formula to represent common difference? D. So we know if we're going to write an explicit formula, I'm going to go ahead and write the formula that I need. So I'm going to say that a sub n is equal to a sub 1 plus n minus 1 times d. Okay, that's a formula that's given to me on my formula sheet. I know I'm using that one because it's arithmetic. Why is it arithmetic? Because I'm adding the same number every time. What information do I know in my formula right now? Well, let me tell you the 2 things you need, because there are only 2. You need to know what the first term is, and you need to know what the common difference is. Since I'm writing a formula, I'm going to leave n alone. N should be in my formula. Okay? N should be there. All I need to know is what I've highlighted. Those are what I'm going to be replacing. Do I know a sub 1? What is it? 2. It's the first term. Isn't a sub 1 just term 1? So I'm going to plug in a 2 into my formula. Maybe. Whatever number that is, that's your a sub 1. So if I've written out the terms like this, that's all you need to do. Just plug in that first one, whatever the first term was. Okay? We're starting with, okay. So here's my explicit formula. I wrote T's here. It's the same thing as A's. Depends on what book you're looking at. Since your formula sheet uses A's, we'll stick with A's. First term is not that. That's your first term. Agreed? Term you are looking for This is lovely how this is all messed up. And then there's your common difference. All right. So we want to find the formula, not the specific term. So I'm going to go back and cover this up because this is not what I'm looking for here. Maybe there it goes. All right, so let's plug in. So a 2 plus n minus 1. What's the common difference? 4. So I'm going to plug that in. What do you think I'm going to do here? Distribute the 4 and combine like terms. That's exactly what I'm going to do. So we have 4n minus 4 plus 2, or 4n minus 2. That's the formula. Good. I just replaced the two things I needed, and I came up with my equation. Whatever number you're adding or subtracting. In this case, this was the D. Okay? Because I looked and I found 4. Daniel. Oh, yeah, normally you write A sub n equals. Okay? That's A sub n is how that's read. A sub, like subscript n. That's the explicit formula. I will also ask you, could you write a recursive formula? Okay? So let's look at what recursive formula would look like. Okay? So we know how to write the explicit formula. What's the recursive formula? Well, the recursive formula, like what I told you in the very, very beginning, has 2 parts. And I didn't tell you what part 1 was, did I? But part 2 is on your formula sheet. Do you see that? This part's on your formula sheet. But in order to have a full recursive definition, you have to also tell me what the first term is. Tell me what the first term is. The first term is 3. First term is 2. The first term is 5. Whatever it is. So you're going to need to tell me both parts in order for that to be a recursive definition. Okay? So make sure in your recursive that you write both of these things. What is A sub 1? Okay? So let's look at the formula I just gave you. This one here. 2, 6, 10, 14, 18. And let's write a recursive definition. 2, 6, 10, 14, 18, ... Let's write the recursive. We know that in the recursive definition there are 2 parts. What's the first part? I'm going to tell you here. A sub 1 equals perfect. The first term is 2. You need to tell me that. Okay, that's part of the answer. Now I'm going to have to tell me the second part of the definition, and that's this thing. The formula says it's the previous term plus D. Well, the only thing you have to replace, well, you first had to tell me what A sub 1 was, right? And then now you have to tell me what D is, just like before. In the explicit definition, didn't I have to find the first term and the D? I'm doing the same thing with recursive, it's just twice, that's all. So what is D? 4. So all you're going to tell me is it's the previous term plus 4. Well, don't we know that? Doesn't A sub n minus 1 just mean previous term? So that just means previous term plus 4. I add 4 to each previous term. That's it. Yes. That just means previous term. 2 is up here. It is. It's just there's 2 different formulas, and you need to know them both.
Like find A sub 3, then it's just like 10. But then if you find the previous one that's 6, then you add the 4.
Right. That's exactly what that says. Right. There's just 2 formulas, 2 notations that we need to know. Okay. They mean the same thing. I totally agree with you. Previous term plus 4. Tell me where to start. Okay. Let's try one more. I want you to tell me both explicitly and recursively. Oh, we don't have time to do one more. Never mind. Let me go ahead and give you your homework. It's just going to be find the first few terms And could you write the equation? Okay. If you want me to go over more during Flex 3, would you like me to do that? Finish it up during Flex 3? All right, I'll pause this and we'll do a little bit more during Flex 3. Sorry, Flex 2. What I'd like to do before I give you assigned a homework for this is I'd like to make sure that I give you an example of some of the problems that you might see in your homework. So I'm going to do one of the odd ones here, and let's decide, find the missing terms. If I tell you that this is an arithmetic sequence, can you tell me what the blank should be? If it's an arithmetic sequence, that means that I'm going to be adding the same number for each one, right? So someone said 0. Why does 0 probably not make a lot of sense here? Isn't 0 really close to 1, but not so close to -15? Okay. How would I figure out what it is? How'd you get -7? Shh. Huh? What? So what would that number be? What number goes here? You can guess and check for a little bit. That's okay. I'm going to show you next class how to exactly do it. But if we wanted to guess and check, that's approximately where it is. How do I know if it's exactly? Well, aren't there 8 numbers between -7 and 1? Okay. How many numbers are there between -15 and 7? 8. So since it's the same one, isn't -7 the right answer? It's halfway between the two. Can I just add them and divide by 2? Will that work too? Subtract them and divide by 2. Sorry. -16 divided by 2. And that give you? No. I'm thinking that would give you this number. And then I would just add it. Sorry. We'll talk about how to do it specifically next class. You can find the term. You can tell me if it's arithmetic. You can find a missing term. All right, I think that's probably about what you'll see. The only other thing is recursive, and I don't see a recursive. Oh, I do. So let's try one like this. All right, so if I ask you, I'm going to do an odd one here. I want you to tell me, I want you to write an explicit definition and a recursive. So we need to do both. That's part of your homework. What will you have to do in this case? Which one do you want to start with? Explicit? The formula for explicit according to your formula sheet is a sub 1 plus n minus 1 times d. What do I need to plug in? I need to find the common difference and the first term. What's the formula? What's 2? Oh, 2 is the a sub 1 plus n minus 1, and then what's my d? D is also 2. Okay, that'll get you partial credit. We'll need to distribute. Is just 2n. So that's the explicit formula. It's just the first term. A sub 1 means first term. A sub 5 means fifth term. Okay? If I wanted to do the recursive definition, how many pieces are there to a recursive? There's 2. So you'll need to write them both. What's the first piece? A sub 1, and what does it equal in this case? 2. All right. We also have to tell myself something in terms of the previous term. All right. So then I'm going to have to go and find the formula. The formula, if you look at it, is just your previous term plus the difference. What's the common difference? What's d? 2. So I'm just going to say that it's the previous term plus 2. Is it really small? The subscript that's just the notation. You do write them low like that. They are subscripts. I'd rather you write, it says a formula. So the formula would be this is part 1 and this is part 2. You need both of them like that. Okay? While I agree D is 2, but that you just plug the 2 into the formula. Moody question? What I have highlighted is the answer. Or what I have boxed in would be the recursive formula. Okay? All I needed to do, and this is kind of what April is saying, D is 2. So I just plugged in a 2. How did I get 2? Because there's 2, I add 2 every time to get to the next number. Tim, don't put your hand in her face, please. Tim.
Sorry, I was searching. I'm sorry.
All right, so that's really all you're going to be able to see. Can you find a certain term number? Can you write an explicit formula, a recursive formula? And could you find a missing term? Where did I show you that? I'm not sure where I wrote that even. But all right, so let me go ahead and give you your homework. Okay, it's going to be out of the textbook. It is going to be on page 575 to 576. Going to do some even problems here. You're going to do 8 through 24. And then we're going to, guys, then we're going to skip some, and we're going to go to 42 to 44. And you're going to do evens only. Okay? So that's your homework there. You can take a picture of it if you need to. I'll also text it to you and put it on School Fusion.